Congratulate Dimitri and his colleagues, and of course you as participants, to be in this course, which is really very impressive that you in a short time you have put up such a comprehensive course of a couple of weeks, and that's really great. So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm honored. Also be honored to be at ITMO University. It's a wonderful research institute. So Dimitri asked me to tell something about science communication from the perspective of an institute where I work. I work at Erasmus MC, which is in fact a merger between the medical faculty of the university and the academic hospital. So the hospital and the faculty, the research and education and patient care, they have merged. And it is a very big organization. There were 12,000 people working there. Sometimes it's hard for research and education to be competing with patient care because it's bigger, there's more money. On the other hand, there is also a continuum, of course, between the basic research that is done in Erasmus MC from genetics and biology all the way to patient care and even prevention, public health in society. So science communication from the perspective of a research institute, I think it is important to know that it is not just letting to look the public into the science, which is very important, of course, that the public understands what science is about, why it is important and how it is done. I think just as important is that also the researchers look out through the window into the world and see how their research is related to the world, and what people think about their research and how they can anticipate to that. This presentation has 5 elements. First I will shortly talk about myself a little, then about science communication perspectives, then about trust in science. It's interesting to know sometimes we think there is a crisis in the trust in science, but on the other hand, if you look at the numbers and surveys, there is still a lot of trust in science. It's important to know that and also to cherish this trust that there is in science. Then I will look at the science communication practice in Erasmus MC. And as Dimitri said, we have developed a workshop for media context for researchers. I will try to illustrate this by doing just one exercise with you, so I hope we have time enough. In the meantime, if you have questions, also during my talk, just ask them, just break in, and then we take time for it. Well, I come from the Netherlands, famous for the windmills. They're not far from my home, but in fact I live in a very modern city, Rotterdam, which is used to be the biggest harbor in the world. Nowadays they're in Asia, the biggest harbors in the world. There's a lot of modern architecture. Usually I go with my bicycle over this bridge. My wife is Russian, by the way. You see, she's called Svetlana. We have 2 children, Polina and Stas, who you see over there. And this is our summer school in Erice. It is work, but also a hobby. It's very nice to be involved in a school where students from all over Europe come to discuss science communication together with scientists. About my work, this is Erasmus University Medical Center. It is not finished yet. There is a building at the same place, and we're building a new building at the same place as the old building. This is quite complicated. We are totally lost sometimes because the routes change all the time. But in the end, in 2018, it will look like this, and half of the building has been realized already. The big towers are for research, and the lower buildings are mainly for patient care. And in fact, I was lucky when I started working there in 2000. This was the moment that they had the plan to merge this medical faculty with the university hospital. And this was also the moment we had to think about our identity. Who are we if we no longer just research? And how will we position ourselves in society? How will we make sure that people understand what we're talking about, Erasmus MC? You know, hospitals, they have often a very strong reputation. People are born there, they die there, they are ill there. So it is very hard to take the place of a hospital. So we were thinking about branding our organization, about making it known to the public. And then we realized that research is actually also a very good thing to communicate. People like to hear about research. They don't like to go to the hospital. So, but on the other hand, patient care is very relevant. Research is interesting. So by combining this relevance of patient care with the interest in science, that created also our identity. And from that moment on, we also thought of how presenting ourselves. One of the things we're particularly proud of, you see a big concert hall here, and there are about 1,800 people in there, and they all come for a science lecture. And there are people from the general public, but also relations of our organization, policy makers, a lot of doctors, of course, but a lot of personnel, researchers, but I think 2/3 of the people are from the general public, just people from Rotterdam who listen to a scientific story. And what we do is invite one of our own researchers. We always start really with the basic research, invite the researcher, and ask this researcher also to invite a colleague of him or her who's working somewhere in the world. And we invite them to give a lecture. So it's a dual lecture. In the breaks we have art by the conservatory and the dance academy. And at the end we also give some fellowships to young researchers. And it's a big celebration actually of talent. It lasts 2 hours, and people even from the general public, they really love it. So it proves that it's possible to present basic science to a general public. We've also been organizing activities which are more directed to professionals, to industry, policymakers, physicians, to bring them together with researchers to see how we can bring the results of research to the market and to innovation. So Innovation for Health is another event which has a much more professional character. I've been a press officer for about 6 years. This means that I've been communicating about research that time, but also about patient care and a lot of crises in the hospital. Of course, things happen there. Once there was a baby stolen from the hospital, once there was a fire, and then you really learn how press communication can work if it is really urgent. And this was a great experience, and that is why I set up media workshops for researchers. And we started locally with our own researchers. We built out this workshop, and we had a reader, and in fact we published it as a book. We wanted to bring the book today, but somehow they have not arrived through the mail. There is a PDF version, but we will still try to get you a copy. Yep, other way around. So working as a press officer was also a great opportunity to see what this problematic relationship, because it's sometimes also problematic, the relationship between science and the public. And sometimes we think scientists, they just don't want to communicate, or we think that the public don't want to learn about difficult topics, but I think this is not true. It is just another way of looking. There are different perspectives, and if we understand these perspectives, we can work with them and see how we can actually make them work. And first of all, if you think of when a journalist is talking about an article, he means something totally different than a scientist who's talking about an article. A scientist has been working for 3 years, possibly, on an article, while a journalist learns in the morning that he has to write an article which has to be finished in a couple of hours. So that's something totally different, and a researcher who is talking to a journalist about an article may be confused by that. Also because the scientists think, okay, there's a journalist, he will summarize my article, he will listen to me carefully, he will read my article and make a summary for the public. But this is often not true, of course, because if you look at the other opposites which there are, a journalist likes to tell a story. not just report on facts. He wants to learn about real people who have hard times, who have good times. So they are looking for the human interest also in the scientific story, while a scientist will try to exclude emotions and human emotions as much as possible from his or her article. A journalist also wants to tell a story that goes from a beginning to an end. This means that in fact if we have discovered something, if a scientist has made a discovery, they want to hear that it will finally reach to a cure for cancer or something. There must be a result to this work. And of course a lot of scientific articles, they are only one step in the way to come to a solution, or maybe just adding some knowledge to the knowledge that we already have. There's not always a very clear societal conclusion to it. A journalist will also focus on the bigger picture, the context. Why is this important? Why should we want to know? This is also why basic science is sometimes difficult to present in the general media, because people want to know why it is relevant. Why should I care? What does it change in my life? And of course the scientist is looking in his field for very specific facts. We've also learned as press officers that the journalists, they like to start with the conclusions, and the scientists, they end with the conclusions. The scientists will first work carefully towards her conclusion, while the journalist often puts the conclusion as the headline on top of the article. I was talking about emotion already. And the last thing is also important to know. A journalist likes opposing views. If a scientist says something, the journalist will try to find someone who is opposing this, who says the other thing. And of course, for democracy, this is very important. If one party says this, another party says that. But for scientists, it's often disturbing. We've seen, for example, scientists who were working on vaccination, which is important, and who were invited for a television interview. And then he thought, okay, that's nice, I will be on television. I can tell why vaccination is important and why we have this campaign. And he did not realize there would also be someone who was opposing vaccination, who was against vaccination. And he was very disturbed by this and very upset. And I think if he should have realized that this is how the media work, he could have anticipated and give better answers. So this was based on our own experience, and here it was very nice to see in a presentation by the AAAS that in fact they came with this schedule, which is very similar in fact. If you look at the scientist, he starts from the background and works carefully to conclusions, while the journalist, he will start with the bottom line immediately, then ask the question, so what? Why is this important to us? And then maybe also get to the data. And in fact, this brings me also to this schedule. Maybe you've heard of it. It's become quite famous, the Golden Circle, a famous TED talk by Simon Sinek. And in fact, he always gives the example of Apple computers. Somehow we all like Apple and iPhones. And why is this? And Simon Sinek says it is because they're not saying we're selling computers and they're good, because there are lots of brands who sell computers. They're even not saying how they are doing this, but in fact they say why. Why is it important that we have this technology? There's this famous presentation about the iPhone, which is in fact merging a computer, a camera and a telephone. And it means that in fact Apple is trying new solutions. They are not happy with the things that we already have, with the current state of affairs, but they're always challenging things, trying to find new groundbreaking products. And this is in fact why they're so successful. And it's interesting, we have made a video at Erasmus MC. I think you can start it up from there. It is in the link in the picture.
Wie zijn wij? En wat is ons doel? Dit is een universele vraag. Wij bevinden ons op een bijzondere plek, in een prachtige wereld. Deze plek kan verbluffend mooi zijn. En wij horen hier thuis. Ik wil je vragen om eens stil te staan bij wat we doen. Het lijkt soms zo normaal, maar het is eigenlijk ook heel bijzonder. Wij durven initiatief te nemen in onderzoek, onderwijs en zorg. Met een flinke dosis optimisme. Grenzen blijven verleggen. Zo werken we aan de toekomst. Iedere dag weer een stukje verder. Soms gebeuren er dingen waar je geen rekening mee gehouden hebt. En op die momenten kom je ons tegen. Wees gerust. We zijn ambitieus en we leren van de praktijk. Daar kent men ons van. Ook delen we graag onze kennis, omdat wij geloven in openheid en in keuzes maken. Opwindend? Jazeker. Bijzonder? Absoluut. Hier denken we stappen vooruit, zodat jij de aandacht krijgt die nodig is. Dit geldt niet alleen voor jou, maar ook voor hem en haar. Welkom in onze wereld. Wij zijn denkers die doen. Onze passie ligt bij gezondheid. En gezond blijven is ieders geluk.
So in fact, this gives quite a complete impression of Erasmus MC. That's the next one. Without giving very much facts and figures, but we think, yeah, we can of course say how many people there work there, how big the budget is, how many operations we do every year, but what does it mean, 10,000 or 100,000? Well, this is much more starting from the intrinsic motivation of people to care about life and to get to know things about life, and we hope that this is a more lasting impression than just giving those facts and figures. Why do we need a scientist in science communication? There is a survey in Europe, maybe it's there in Russia too, but it's very interesting for students who are interested in science communication to have a look at it. The Eurobarometer. Every year actually the European Commission asks I think 25,000 people about certain topics, and in 2010 and 2013 they asked about science and technology. And there you see that if the European citizens are asked who are the best people to explain science, most of them think that scientists should explain the science. So it's not press officers, it's not politicians, not journalists. Scientists are the best ones to explain the science. So we think that our main job as press officers or science communicators is to provide a stage and facilitate scientists to do the speaking themselves. And this means we have to train them, we have to facilitate them, and the scientists from their behalf have to understand that it's important, and in fact that it can be very much fun. So this is the underlying idea between of the organization of our science communication, is to let scientists explain their research. And the communication department facilitates that by keeping a network of media contacts, by giving media trainings, by our own media. We have a magazine, as you see here, a website, we have this movie, but it's always the scientists who are in the important roles. We use social media, and apart from that also we provide formats for outreach, science cafes. Are there any science cafes in St. Petersburg? It is in fact a very interesting format, because you can start a science cafe even tonight. The classical science cafe is a scientist who goes to, who is in a crowded place, a crowded cafe, and just starts talking almost like a stand-up comedian about his science. And of course it is nice if the people are prepared for that, so you can announce it. But in fact it is very successful, and the classical model is that you don't use any technique, no PowerPoint, no sound or other forms of technique, which makes it also very challenging for the scientists, because they have to really tell the story without any help, and making sure that the people understand what they're doing. So it is a very good format, first of all, to train this, to learn how to do this, but also because it's a very easy and effective way to reach the public. Science Festival, every year we organize a science festival on the occasion of the European Researchers' Night. It's also very much fun. In fact, we try to focus on meetings with the scientists and the public, not just lectures where the scientist is in the lecture hall and the public is in the hall, but really more small-scale presentations where people actually can discuss things, ask questions, and that's a very accessible format. And we do also programs for school. We organize this with the university. We have a network of schools in primary and secondary education. And again, there are scientists. It's important that scientists go to the schools. Not every day, of course. Teachers have a role there too. Students can do some of the work, but the scientist sooner or later also has to turn up at the school program. Dimitri also asked me, how do you convince scientists to do this? Well, the first reasons are very obvious. Funding organizations also ask for scientists to do this. There is a great need for public participation in science and in the science agenda, to make sure that we secure the political and public support for science. People must recognize their own opinions in the science agenda. Funding organizations also like to be seen themselves, but also they want the result of their research to be seen in society, so they often have conditions that scientists do outreach projects. But of course also we know, and there are some very interesting articles about the motives of scientists to be in the media, and we know that media attention really supports public and political support for science, but also supports funding activities of scientists. If scientists are in the media, very often this helps them getting funds, and they know this, so they calculate that it's important. But on the other end, it is also, and this is I think even more important, it is very rewarding for scientists to discuss with the public what they're doing. It brings them to very original approaches, new ideas, if they just listen to the questions and listen to the remarks by the public. So sometimes it looks like it is extra work that they have to do, but I think if they incorporate it in their activities, it also helps them finding new topics and new angles and presenting their research when they want new projects. And quite often scientists also like to educate young people and attract them to a science career. And they will also find out it's just very nice to do this science communication projects. If you have any questions, just ask them. So externally, we cannot do it all by ourselves. It would not be good, I think, if research institutes are only shouting from their roofs what they're doing. We should work together with other people and also use the qualities of all the different parties. For example, there is a network of science museums and science centers. It's called Excite. And as a research institute, you can get involved in this network. And museums and science centers, they have the specific expertise for presenting science. They have the buildings, the logistics. Often they have also audiences who visit their museums. So those are very good parties to collaborate with, because then the research institute can concentrate on the content, on the topics, and work very effectively together. You should realize that those collaborations should not be too opportunistic, because if you have an idea for an exhibition this summer and you work hard for this, and then the Science Museum will never hear from you again, it's not very interesting for them to do so. So what we try to do is create lasting collaborations with museums. We have a natural history museum which is right next to Erasmus MC. We do a lot of projects together. They know that they can also call us if they have an idea to find the research that is fitting this idea. And the same goes for schools. I think in the Netherlands, schools get a lot of extra material from research institute, but also from other campaigns, and asked to tell something about it in the classroom. And this does not work very much. The teachers get very tired of all those new ideas and all those new stuff. So what they really like is how to see how we can incorporate science on a more lasting basis into their curriculums. And of course you can connect to moments in the local and the national agenda. Next year there will be the bridge that you saw in the first slide will be 20 years old next year. This will be a moment that the city wants to celebrate the Erasmus Bridge. It's called the Erasmus Bridge. So we can connect with them as a university to make it a party for all of us. So here are some examples of the things we've done. One spectacular thing was the live surgery in a cinema that we did. So the patient was operated on in the hospital, but we had a live transmission to a cinema in the city where people could actually witness the operation and even ask questions to the surgeons in the room. And this was very successful also because it attracted a lot of media. We also made an online serious game, a game about the flu pandemic, and this was also played all over the world quite sometimes. This is one of the exhibitions in the Natural History Museum that I told you about. This is the lecture, once again the public lecture. It's every year. This is the Science Café. We do it in fact every month, and there's always a scientist who likes to be the scientist of that month. Our corporate magazine, and again the event for the innovators in healthcare. Let's see. The media workshop is another aspect. We gave the workshop in Erasmus MC 7 times this year, each time for 12 researchers. It doesn't sound like a lot of researchers. On the other hand, 70, 80 researchers every year builds up to quite a capacity for researchers who at least have been introduced to working with the media. We used a reader, just some sheets of paper, and when we developed this and also collected ideas from the scientists but also from the science journalists, we used this workshop also at Erice in Italy, and we decided that we would collect the ideas from the different audiences and make it all together into a book. And this book has been published last year. And well, it is a basis actually for doing those introductions in the media for researchers, and we try to encourage also other institutes to start their own workshops and to feed back to us the information that they have. So it's in fact it's an international collaboration project, and it's very nice to do. We get a lot of good feedback. You can download the book for free from our Facebook site, and of course we also like to collect all those ideas and feedback for next editions.
The group is closed.
Is it?
Yes, it's
really?
closed. You can,
oh yeah, but you can. Yeah, we accept. Yes.
They already have it. I sent it today, but
okay.
You
can send us a request to become a member, and then we accept it. Okay. Okay. We will accept you right away. I can do it from the iPhone. And yeah, well, if it probably there are some books on the way, which Dimitri can still hand out. So it's a very practical book. It's not long. It is meant actually if a researcher is called today that he has an interview tomorrow, he can even read the book before the interview. Yes?
Is it focused on medical science or just like in workshop?
Well, you will see there is a lot of medical science in it, but we've tried to make it broader than just medical science. So we have also some cases from non-medical science. And in case you have any cases yourself, of course, let us know, then we can also.
That, if my science is humanities, so it is not so
yes.
Easy to find something for...
It's an interesting question, yeah. I hear that a lot. People say, well, this medical science is relevant to everyone because people are always ill or the family members are ill, so they have a very direct interest in it. I think...
The institute should do one more.
yeah, or incorporate it in this one. In fact...
in the future it will be like a serial of materials.
It would be very nice, yeah. In fact, my colleagues from the university always say, "Oh, you have it's easy for you because medical is always interesting." And then I said, "Okay, let's have an event that we develop together, and with a bit of original thinking, you can also for the humanities, I think, make very nice interactive formats for science communication." So you should take up the challenge and.
Just I should try this one.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.